Hello, this is an assessment for restoration of this piano, or before tuning. It needs much more than tuning, as we'll see in a minute. But we like to assess pianos before we tune them, and in this case, totally essential, really. I'm just looking at the piano stool first. This is a modern piano stool. And most piano stools come flat packed to dealers now, and as you can just see my colleague here wobbling the leg. That regularly needs tightening up, not hand tight. You have to have a nice long spanner to tighten those up. I've mentioned that before. Now, the piano is a Bluthner Style 6, that's 175 centimetres long, and it's made in 1911, was sold by Harrods. We've got the Harrods little badge here, and you can see from that the number, and from that we have a list of numbers telling us that that's roughly 1964 when that was sold by Harrods. So maybe they restored it at the same time, because the piano has restrung, and they had a restoration department at that time. I think at that time still. I just have to check my records, but I'm pretty sure that they did. And unfortunately, there's been a lot of moth damage in the piano. You can see here where that's so common. In fact, the last video I made, the piano had moth damage, but in this case it's actually affected the mechanics of the piano too. So it's not as visible. Sometimes you see these completely missing. You can see the damage there though. And on this bearing cloth, so they've really had a good munch of the whole piano. This is not affecting the playability of the piano, but it's obviously cosmetic, and we'd have to restring the piano if that's going to be rectified, because you can't really get to this felt without restringing. We could theoretically take the strings off and put them back on again, but that would take as long as restringing the whole piano. And the strings, the tuning pins are tight and the strings are good, so there's a possibility of just make the piano playable without having this cosmetic work done. But of course, if it was our piano, we would do this as well. Hugely affects the value of the piano if the work's not done. And even down the bass end here, you can see the moth droppings, and they had a nibble here, not as extensive as the inside of the piano, as we're going to see in a second. Now, the first sign that moth damage has occurred is, as we made in the last video actually, because the same issue is so common, moth damage. It's the larvae that eat the felt, and you can see the larvae have eaten the felt behind the keys here, and that's the sure sign. If you've got a piano, have a look at the felt behind your keys and see if it's got, and if it's intermittent like this is, no felt there at all. I think the piano was probably repolished when Harrods had it, and it is needing making good, but the veneer is generally good, and you can see the top there, so that could obviously improve quite considerably. We'd make this good rather than repolish the whole piano. Obviously we can repolish the piano in polyester, which tends to be done. Now, you can French polish, but it's even more expensive than polyester. Now, the moth damage is extensive on this piano. You can see the keys are very uneven. This one's very high up, and then they undulate in the middle there. So clearly the moths have been attacking underneath the keys. Now, lifting some of the keys up, you can see the front base here has been eaten extensively, although in fact most of the base is there. Now, if we look at the balance rail, unfortunately they've eaten all the felt, I think all the way along practically, on all the balance rail felts. So that's obviously the keys have affected everything, affected the touch tremendously. If you replace these, they should be replaced with the same thickness as they originally had. So first thing is to make sure there's no moth live still in the piano. I don't think there is, but just to be on the safe side. And then after that, obviously replacing the felts as necessary. Now you can see the felt on the hammer rail here has also been eaten, and the damage got something spilled on the hammers here as well, so that'll affect the tone of the hammer. So the hammers, generally the tone is reasonable, but obviously needs voicing and tidying up, and the moths have eaten the sides of the hammers here too, but that's not affecting the tone. And usually moth damage on the hammers, you do find that the ends can be resurrected a bit. Obviously if it's our own piano we would change the hammers, but I'm thinking about this piano being playable and say 80% of what it could be without having to do all the work on the piano. So we're taking the action out of the piano now, and you can see they've had a tremendous munch, haven't they? Normally they're not as bad as this, but in this case they've eaten all of these. They're obviously the ones that lift up the dampers, and then they've eaten the back rail too, and that's causing so much problems to the touch. So it is possible to replace all the felts. and make it playable again, because it's such a beautiful tone, as Bluthners are. Now, looking inside the piano, if you look at the left-hand side, the piano is upended when it's moved, and so you tend to get a gathering of all the moth droppings here. And they've also eaten this felt here, so that needs replacing. And we can have a look here. They've eaten the felts here on the rail. They must have had a long time. Often, if a piano is neglected, not used for a long time, this can happen. So if you have a piano and it's in a room that's not being used, have a look at it. Make sure that moths are not eating the felts. Try and protect against moths with pheromone strips. We've mentioned this. We've got other videos about moths and what to do. And if you've got ideas, if you're a tuner or have information about what to do, that would be very helpful. I don't know if you're going to be able to see this, but lots of the guide rail felts have been missing as well. So really, extensive felt replacement is necessary for the piano to work properly. So as you can see, the main issue on this piano is moth, and one of the most extreme examples I've ever come across. So I'm trying to look at whether the piano is rescuable without fully restoring, but we would obviously love to fully restore the piano, and then you just change all the felts and you can start afresh. Worth doing. It's just an excellent piano. So it's a patent action, as you'd expect on this. We didn't mention that, but I've got plenty of videos about that too. So treating for moth, replace felts, probably all of them, practically. Pitch raise, it's extremely flat. I didn't mention that. It's about 427 at the moment, as opposed to 440. So that's a big pitch raise. And you can do that. If they're original Bluthner strings, I'd be more concerned because they're very high tension in the bass. But these ones, I think they'll pitch raise without any problem whatsoever. And then obviously for extensive regulation, there's some guide rail felt missing there. So I hope that's been helpful to somebody. Do be extremely careful with moths. The last two assessments I've made are both before tuning. Both of them are the same issue with moth, really. And the last piano was fortunately been redeemed. O'Hara's sold the piano in approximately 1964. They probably restored it. I did have a workshop at that time to restore pianos. So that's... They would have done a lot of the work then, and the moths come in since. So the moth comes, as I say, when it's neglected, put in a room perhaps we don't normally go in. So it's very damaging to furniture and clothes and so on as well, the moths. So worth thinking about. Haven't bothered to do any of the key weighting because obviously that will all be redone once the piano is restored. So I hope that's useful. And we're just going to have a quick listen to the piano as it is. So this is an assessment of a Bluthner Style 6 grand piano, 175 centimeters long, and you can hear it has a beautiful tone, as they consistently do. Bluthners, one of the most consistent pianos, and well restored. Very flat at the moment, but sounds so beautiful. I even enjoy playing it as it is, which is strange, isn't it? But I do love pianos. So thank you very much for listening. If you want a piano assessed before tuning, is something we're trying to do a lot of these days, because obviously in this case you definitely needed work and assessment, and the client realised that. Please do write to info@robertspianos.com.